Before we get into the video, I wanted to share a special tool that David and I have been using for over 2 years to manage our inventory on Amazon. The tool is called SoStocked, and it is a very powerful tool. It's designed specifically for inventory management. If you're in a physical products business selling on Amazon, you need to be in stock, especially with the inventory restrictions lately. This tool is incredibly powerful. If you're having trouble with inventory management, this might be a tool to help you. SoStocked is partnered with Firing Demand, and they've offered our guests, our listeners, a 30-day free trial. So click the link in the video description to get 30-day free trial. On to the video.
Welcome, everyone, to the Firing Demand podcast. On today's episode, we are joined by Matt Edmundson. Matt is an experienced e-commerce entrepreneur and coach with over 20 years of experience in the industry. He has generated over $75 million in worldwide sales, and his coaching clients have a combined turnover of over $100 million. His passion is helping businesses grow and succeed online, and specializes in customer centricity, company culture, and all e-commerce related topics. We're very excited to have Matt as part of the show. Welcome, Matt.
Wow, thanks for having me, man. It's great to be here. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you, as are we. So to start things off, can you please share with our listeners a little bit about your background and your path to becoming an entrepreneur in the e-commerce space?
Yeah, sure. It was e-commerce was one of those things that I sort of stumbled across by accident. In the late 90s, I was working, and yes, it is that long ago. I appreciate that's a long time ago. I was working for a friend of mine, and I started what we would now call a side hustle. Back then we just called it a second job, but we called it a side hustle now. And it all started when a friend of mine asked me if I knew anybody that did websites. He'd heard about these website things and figured that they needed one, and did I know any company that could do one? And there was only one company that I knew that did websites back then, and they were great, but they were expensive. And this was back in the day when you had to write all the code out, in Notepad and stuff like that. So crazy money. I said to him, well, listen, if you like, you pay me, I'll figure it out. And let's see what happens. And that was just it, really. And I sort of never looked back since. We started doing website, and then e-commerce started becoming a thing. And so I thought, well, let's just build our first e-commerce store and see what happens. And I called a friend of mine who sold, he had a traditional catalog business, selling tanning products to tanning salons. These are kind of lotions and potions you put on your face to kind of help you tan better. And I said to him, listen, I'm going to build an e-com site. I don't know what to sell online. And I just need some products, man. Can I sell your stuff? And if I sell any of it, I'll buy it from you as and when I sell it. So I don't have to buy a load of stock. Is that all right? I said, that'd be great. 6 months later, he bought that business from me. That website, it sort of took off a little bit. And yeah, that's how I started out in e-com. And that's when I sort of fell in love with it. When I started waking up richer than when I went to sleep. It was a wonderful thing.
Nice. So Matt, glad to have you on the show. My first question is, you shared a little bit of your background how you got started, and what attracted you to e-commerce? Like, was it the challenge or trying to figure it out, or was there another piece of maybe passive income, waking up in the morning, being richer than you were when you come? What attracted you to specifically the e-commerce space?
It was this whole idea that you could sell stuff online without having a storefront, like a shop where I'd done retail in sort of some of my previous jobs. And retail was hard work. We'd done some catalog work in some of my previous jobs, where people would send in, or they would fax in there. And again, going back a few years, isn't it? They would send you faxes with orders, and you would send out an invoice, and they would write you a check, and you'd pay. And the whole thing would take weeks. And so e-commerce this is back in 2002 was when we did our first website. So there was no Shopify. There was nothing out there really. And so it was part challenge. Could I write code that enabled us to put product online? And it was part curiosity, as in, you can really sell stuff on the web and people will buy it. Are they nuts? And I was obviously doing it myself, and so I thought this thing was great. So it was curiosity with no real sense of direction, no real sense of I'm going to create a life out of this. It was just, I just saw something that was intriguing and just wanted to have a go, really.
Very nice. Now, your experience in the industry towers both Ken and I's even combined, and so I'm really interested in asking asking you this next question. So when you look at all the brands that you've either created or work with, what stands out about the top 10% of performers? Is there any characteristics? Maybe it's price point, maybe it's size, maybe it's industry, but what stands out about the top 10% of performers?
So just thinking through all of that in my head, there's a number of things that I seem to have personally done well with, and that is to sell small repeatable products. So we did well in the beauty space, sold that business a couple of years ago. I'm currently involved in this, which is a health supplement space. Again, small repeatable product, right? This is stuff that people want to buy time and time again. And the reason why they work well for us, I think, is because company as an organization, I suppose, one of the things that we're good at, one of the things that I think is super important is to focus on the customer relationship. Because, Amazon's great, but Amazon in effect is a commodity. It's a big old supermarket. There's no personality behind it. And so we're kind of like, well, how do we do the customer aspect of it, the customer journey, the customer story? How do we do that really well? And so if I think about the stuff that we've done, if I think about the brands that I've worked with, the ones that tend to do really well are the ones that sell repeatable products and do the customer service, the customer journey, the whole retention side of life very, very well.
Can we expand on that a little bit more? I'm sure there's somebody listening that does have, one of these consumable, repeatable products. What have been some ways that you've, after that first purchase, how do you get them coming back for more?
And $1 million question, isn't it? I should write a book on this and make a fortune. I think fundamentally you have to understand your customer and you have to understand what it is that they're really buying. So if I take the beauty business, we started selling products in 2006 online, and it was price discounted on that website, right? So we grew because we discounted, but it wasn't a long-term solution, I don't think, to being established for a while. So we changed our strategy, and we spent a little while understanding the customer, and we sort of dove deep, and we asked ourselves questions like, what is it the customer's actually buying? I know they're buying a moisturizer and a cleanser, but what is it they're actually buying? Because you can get a moisturizer and a cleanser from the supermarket for $5. Why are they coming to my website and spending $80, right? What's the reason behind that? And we could talk about the science of skincare, we could talk about the results of it, but fundamentally it came down to a few key things, one of which, quite high up on the list, was they were buying a gift for themselves, right? They were treating themselves. You spend $80 on face cream because you want to treat yourself, the L'Oreal thing, you're worth it. That whole, I just want to feel better about myself. And so when we realized this, we changed a lot about our business in the sense of, you take the packaging, for example. Before we realized this, we were sending out customers' goods just in a plain brown box, just wiped it in a box, threw in some plastic, the plastic air bubble things, and sent it out. And we thought we were doing well because all our competitors were sending them in the Jiffy bags, the padded envelopes. And so their box would arrive. And so we thought, well, let's upgrade it to a box. And at least, it arrives in better shape kind of thing. When we realized that we were sending out gifts, we were like, actually what we need to do is create an opening experience like you're opening a gift. So we added an extra flap onto the cardboard box. And on that inner flap, we printed this lovely message about how remarkable they were as a human being and celebrated, being human. And as they opened both flaps, it just felt like you were opening a gift a bit more. You were unwrapping something. And then inside, everything was covered in tissue paper. So you kind of had to open the tissue paper. So then it started to really feel like a gift. And we also realized that, our brand values, we like to have a bit of fun. We like to have a bit of a laugh. So we thought, plastic bubbles don't really speak gift, but we know we needed to put something in there to keep the products from moving around. So we looked at that, the shredded paper, like the bird's nest stuff, but that was crazy expensive, and we thought, well, that would make it a bit gifty. Should we, put perfume in there? And then one day I had a bit of an idea. We were brainstorming with the team, and I just had this crazy idea, and I can't tell you where it came from or why I had this idea, but I thought, I wonder what would happen if we used popcorn. And so we bought some popcorn machines. We tried all kinds of different corns to figure out the best one, and lo and behold, we found that popcorn was this magical kind of substrate, for want of a better expression, to these boxes. And so we had popcorn machines going constantly in the warehouse. If you wanted a low calorie snack, it was a place to go, man. And so So we would pack the products. So we'd put the beauty products in a box. We'd fill that box with popcorn, stop them moving around. We'd wrap all that in tissue paper, put a little sticker on there because we had to do it after a while saying, please don't eat the popcorn. It was not produced in a food safe environment, but do give it the birds, and it is biodegradable. And because sustainability was becoming a bigger thing, we added the extra flaps, we changed the tape. And so it became this sort of gift that was more sustainable, more environmentally friendly. And it wasn't just that, but when we started doing things like that, that's when our retention rate became way higher than the industry. I mean, way, way higher. That's when customers started posting pictures of their packaging on Facebook, which they'd never done before. I mean, why would you? The only time you'd ever put a picture of a box on social media was because the box was too bloody big. Do you know what I mean? And you'd send out a tiny product in a massive box. So you only got those sort of complaints. But yeah, we started doing things like that. So that's what I mean about becoming a bit more customer focused, understanding what the customer is shopping for, what they want, what is it they really are after, and how can we orient our entire process around that to bring that out for them.
Yeah, I like that. That's next level experience, opening something that you just bought a gift. And so that's genius. I've never heard of popcorn being used. And so I'm gonna stash that one away for a rainy day. So I really like it though. Matt, you had said the retention rates, you started noticing retention rates increasing once you changed the customer experience. Did you also track cost of acquisition for a customer and then see if that decreased? Because people were posting on social media and spreading around.
Cost of acquisition, did it decrease? I mean, we kept cost of acquisition pretty much the same. Yep. So new customer acquisition, we were like, this is our budget, let's go and get them. Cost of acquisition went up and down because Google was becoming, Google Shopping was getting more and more competitive. Facebook was getting more and more competitive. So we were making these improvements, but we weren't really seeing them in reality because everybody was putting their prices up. God bless them. So one of the things that did make a massive difference to cost of acquisition, and the reason why I'm slightly hesitant is there was a massive step change for us and that's when we stopped doing all the paid media internally or in-house, and we outsourced it. And I made that decision to outsource paid media, and we were spending tens of thousands every month with Google and Meta. And so to make the decision to outsource it was not easy, but when we did, we got an agency involved, absolutely transformed what we were doing, bought in twice as much for half the money. It was incredible, really. And we quickly realized that we'd become really good at certain elements of e-commerce, and we'd not kept up with paid media and the rules of it because there was so much other stuff to keep on top with. And it was just it was over there and it was working, it was maintaining itself. But yeah, when we got another agency involved, that was just eye-opening. And so I've never gone back. We've never done paid media in-house. We still do some paid media in-house. Let me just be totally transparent and honest. For some companies, for our major e-com websites, it's all outsourced.
Fair enough. So it sounds like you brought in an expert and they doubled it and also decreased the ROAS or increased ROAS. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
My next question is, this is for, let's say someone listening that they haven't started a brand yet. Maybe they got a full-time job. They're just kind of listening, kind of kicking the tires on, starting what you call a second job, Matt, or a side hustle. And so what advice would you give them in terms of product selection? How do they find out what brand to start, what product, what niche? Where do you advise on starting?
I tend to tell people several things about products. So if I'm looking for a product to sell online, I'm looking for something that's small and repeatable, because that's what we do well with those kind of products. I'm not saying this is true for everybody, but for me, I'm looking for something that is small, repeatable, and sells between $20 and $75. They're the sweet spots, I think. The way I tend to have people do this, so if they really want to do it and sort of generate some product ideas, look to, have you ever read the book Good to Great by Jim Collins? And he has this sort of Venn diagram of what are you really passionate about? What can you be the best in the world at? And what drives your economic engine? These sort of things to think about. I don't think they're particularly bad things to think about when it comes to products. And for me, there are two key elements about any product. So if I'm brainstorming a whole lot of products, right, I can look at my desk around me, I can look at my hobbies, I can look at things that I'm passionate about, and I can write everything down. The one thing we then have people do is plot out every single product into a matrix. And that matrix has, on the vertical axis, we track, let me get this the right way around in my head, I don't want to tell you the wrong way around. We track demand, or is demand horizontal? It doesn't really matter. On one of the axes, we track demand, and on the other axis, we track knowledge. So horizontal axis, we track demand. Vertical axis, we track knowledge. And what do I mean by that? So I have on my desk, what do I have on my desk here? I have a Yeti cup, right? Now, I can't sell Yeti because obviously I'm not a Yeti distributor, but let's say I think I really like Yeti. I want to get into selling Yeti. Is it small? It's smallish. Is it repeatable? No, these things last a lifetime, but there are other things that I can sell with it, so it becomes a bit more interesting. Let me plot this on the demand and knowledge graph. So how much demand is there for this stuff? Well, there's a lot at the moment, and they're doing, I saw an ad yesterday that they're doing, let me just turn that off. I saw that on Facebook, Yeti had, who did they have? Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez, the Formula One drivers, buying something from their store in Austin just after the Austin Grand Prix. And so obviously the demand is there, right? So you kind of go, well, that's great, because why would I want to sell a product that's not in demand? Question number one. So I had a guy come to me and he said, Matt, I've got 500,000 fidget spinners. Can you help me sell them? You know, the little things you have in your hand that you kind of fidget with? I was like, no. He's like, why? And I said, well, because the demand was 2 years ago. No one's going to care, right? Just get rid of them as a job lot. Sell them to someone like you that goes, I get 500,000 spinners and leave it at that. So you want to track demand, but on the vertical axis, we track knowledge. What do I mean by that? You want to ask yourself a key question, and that is this: how much do I know about this product, right? What's my personal knowledge level like? And if my personal knowledge is low, how easy is it to learn to become an expert in this product? And I'll tell you why this matters. So I don't know a whole great deal about Yeti mugs. I know I like them, but that's about it. But it's not going to be rocket science to learn a lot about them. Yeti may disagree with me, but I don't think that there's going to be an awful lot to learn. So I could increase my knowledge factor quite high. And this was when we started doing beauty. The first thing that we did was we invested a lot in the staff growing their knowledge factor. And the reason we did this was, one, think about customer experience. Good customer experience comes when you answer customer questions. So they've got a question, they've got a query, you want to know how to answer that well. Two, this is how you differentiate yourself from someone who is selling that exact same product on Amazon, right? Because I can give much more knowledge and much more education about a product to a customer on my website than I can on Amazon. And that is super, super powerful, let me tell you. And so it drives content marketing. There's a whole bunch of stuff that I do. So coming back to your original question, what would my advice be? Small, repeatable product that's sort of $20 to $75 range that are in high demand and that you either know about or can learn a lot about. So if you're into golf and you want to sell golf gadgets, that's great. I'm never going to do that because I know nothing about golf. I appreciate this is sacrilege. I could care less about golf. It's just not on my radar. So I never want to get involved in that because I don't want to take the time to learn. Do you see what I mean? Now, there might be high demand for products, but it's just not my bag. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's my advice to people.
No, that's excellent. I like it.
Yeah, I really like how you're factoring in the two things, both demand and your knowledge. I really like that. I've never heard it phrased that way, but it makes a lot of sense. So moving on, I read a piece of content that you put out about the 7 critical elements to e-commerce. Can you share with the audience what are those elements and where most brands get it wrong?
So the 7 elements for me, you start with product and you start with brand. So product, like we've talked about, getting the right products to sell. And this, I think, is probably where most startups get it wrong. I don't see it as much these days, but it used to be the case of you just go to AliExpress or Alibaba or some site and you'd go and find a product like, I don't know, sunglasses or hairbrushes or something that was ridiculously cheap. You'd buy them for like 20 cents. You put them on your website for $20, thinking, man, I'm making $19.80 there. So, that's an awesome product to sell. The problem is no one wants to buy it. There's no demand. And going back to my knowledge graph, you know nothing about them. So sure, there's 1 or 2 stories where people do exceptionally well for a moment in time, but there's no real longevity in it. And most out of 10,000 websites, 9,997 of them don't work, right? So you start with product. And you also start with brand. They're the sort of the first 2 stages. Some people start with product and then move on to brand. Some people start with brand and move on to product. But brand is understanding who you are as a company and is understanding who your customer is and then understanding that overlap. So the example is popcorn. We understood our customers and their need for gift, but also their need for fun and their need for environmental, sort of sensibilities. Cross that over with what we were doing and popcorn was born. And that came out of our brand. So they're the first 2 areas. And brand is more than logo. Brand is more like, it's your story, isn't it? It's the customer story. We move on to tech stack. So what technology do I need to bring this to pass? We've got marketing would be number 4. So how do I drive people to this website I've just gone and built? Number 5, how do I optimize it? So people are on my website. How do I get more of them to buy? Number 6 is all about the customer experience. And for me, I define that as everything that happens after entered their credit card details and click buy. What happens from that point onwards, we label as customer experience, because for me, this is where out of every company I've ever done coaching with, 9 times out of 10, this is where the biggest opportunity lies, is in this part here. Because there's so much information out there about optimization. There's a lot of information about marketing. I mean, technology is easy. You just go get a Shopify site. I mean, do you know what I mean? There's a lot of things which are now taken care of that people have done well because there's so much information freely available. So the biggest opportunities, I think, in most sites that have been up and running for a little while is the customer experience. What happens once someone has put their credit card details in? And then the 7th area I call yo-yo. This is all about growth. This is all about repeatability. How do I get people back time and time again? How do I then grow this into being one in the top sort of 2-3% of my industry?
Matt, from one woodworker to another, I noticed on your website that you list this as one of your hobbies.
Yes.
That you are a woodworker. And so my question is this something that you've ever thought about turning into a brand? Okay, the second part of this question is, what advice would you give to someone who wants to turn a hobby into a job?
Well, yes. Have I thought about turning? So, bit of backstory. I used to sell saunas and steam rooms before I got into e-commerce. And so I was never on the tools. I never did the installs. I did all the designing, and I've designed some really funky spas around the world, which is great. And when I got married, we had no money and we needed a new kitchen. So I just literally went and got some 2x4s and built an entire kitchen out of solid wood and just fell in love with it. It was great. You know, here I am 25 years later, still messing around with things in wood. How would I monetize it? That's a really interesting question. So when I sold my beauty business 2 years ago, we moved warehouse. So we're in a newer warehouse, which has got a sort of a bigger space. I took a corner of that warehouse, I walled it off, and I turned it into a wood shop, like a nice sized little wood shop. And I bought some new tools. There's a little treat to myself for selling the business. I built this, and it's there. I'm down there a lot. I'm in the warehouse obviously quite a bit, and I'm in my wood shop quite a bit, especially the weekend. So what we've done is we've just set up some GoPro cameras in that wood shop. So all I'm going to do is make stuff out of wood and film it and start to build a YouTube channel, just showing people what I've done and how I've done it to build up some kind of audience. Then I will, and you understand I don't need to make a living out of this just yet, so I'm in no rush. I still want to maintain it as a hobby, but the plan is simple. We'll just grow an audience, and once we've got the audience, then I can figure out what to sell to them. So maybe the plans, the woodworking plans. I think selling digital products for me is, we were talking about products earlier instead of knowledge and demand. And repeatable products. If I can sell digital products, that's the elixir, isn't it? It's just like that's the top of the tree if I can do digital products. And so we'll probably do planned downloads. Would I actually sell the furniture? Do I think there's any money to be made in making stuff out of wood and selling it? Yes. Do I want to do that? No, not right now. Like we were talking about earlier, I want to keep it as a hobby. I don't want to be in the wood shop making chopping boards all day. And to be honest with you, way more money selling healthcare supplements than I ever would selling chopping boards online, if that makes sense. I think I'm more interested in building the audience. So in 10 years' time, if I want to step away from this, that's something that I can do. I've got an audience and it's there. What would my advice be to people who are looking to turn a hobby into an income? First, I would ask the sensibility of that. And what do I mean by that? Because the thing for me about woodwork, apart from the fact it's physical, right? Because everything in my life is pixels. So when I touch wood and I pick up a saw, it's real and I can carve it and I can touch it. If I turn that into a business, a manufacturing business, it stops being a hobby. And so then I have to find something to replace the woodwork as a hobby, because then it all becomes about business. And there's a reason we have hobbies. It's part of our mental health. It's part of our well-being. So first I'd ask the sensibility of it. But that aside, can you make money out of your hobbies? Oh, absolutely. You can do some really good stuff, and I think if you can find a way to monetize a hobby, then great. Depending on the niche, depending on what you're doing, like my daughter, for example, she loves to crochet. She crochets some funky things. And so the easiest thing for Zoe is to start building up an Instagram following and then sell the crochet patterns. Now, she doesn't need to make a lot of money. She's 16 years old. If she makes $400 a month, she's happier than a pig in stink, right? It's not like she's not paying a mortgage or anything. But I think build your audience, figure out something that you can sell to them, and just as long as you can enjoy it and maintain it. It's when it starts becoming, there's always that tension, isn't there, when it grows between what point do I leave my full-time job to now work this full-time, or do I hire somebody? There's always that tension at that point, and it's not a straightforward decision. I think if you can do it, great. But just bear in mind, it's a hobby for a reason.
Very good advice. Advice I wish I would have gotten probably, this was a while ago, but I won't call it failed. It was a business that I learned a lot of lessons in.
Yeah, for sure. So Matt, before we get into the fire round, are there any questions that we didn't ask you that we should have?
There's probably thousands of them, bro.
How about the top one?
Here's the thing that I'm getting asked about the most at the moment. There people ask me what is happening in e-commerce that I should be aware of and that I should pay attention to. And there's two things that I think are really interesting opportunities at the moment. Number one, depending on your site, obviously, and depending on what you're selling, I think live shopping is a big deal. And I think it's still in its very early days. And I think if you can get into live shopping in some way, you could positively clean up. In a similar vein to that, I think podcasting, if podcasting makes sense for your e-com business, I would set one up tomorrow because of the power of it and what I've seen with podcasting in e-commerce. So I think live streaming, podcasting, that whole content creation thing, yeah, especially around Black Friday, even just live streaming, doing a YouTube live on your website, embed the YouTube live onto your website and just see what happens and test it and see how it works. Honestly, it's one of those things where I'm surprised that more people aren't doing it. And I know it's real big, sort of Asia way, and we've not really done it here, and that surprises me, especially if you sell things like clothing, where people want to see it, touch it, feel it. Yeah, I just think live shopping, podcasting, that whole side of things is good from a content point of view. And the second thing that I would say is there's been a move, I think, and you've got what I call traditional e-commerce, right? So you have a product, you sell it, and the customer needs it, they're going to come back to your site, they're going to buy it. There was then a move to subscriptions. So you go, well, you come to my website once, you subscribe to a product, and I'll send it to you many times, and subscriptions were great. The evolution of that, I think, is membership. And so how can you utilize membership in your e-commerce business? That fascinates me and really, really intrigues me, because if you take something like Amazon Prime, one of the things that we all mentally ascend to, we all know it in the back of our head. It's not a surprise. If you go shopping for a product and you're on Amazon, really without searching, depending on the product, the chances are it's cheaper somewhere else because Amazon are no longer the cheapest. But you just don't care because you've paid your Amazon Prime membership, and there's this sort of opportunity cost now of not using it. You're like, well, I've paid my $80. I need to get my value out of it. I mean, if the price differential is significant, you won't do it, but you are willing to pay more for a product to a site where you're paying some kind of membership than to a site that you're not, if that makes sense. There's an opportunity cost to it, and you're more likely to use that site going forward. And this is one of the reasons I think Amazon has been really successful. So understanding how that works for you and your e-com business, that would be something I would be spending a lot of time thinking about. So yeah, the two things that I'd be thinking about, your content creation, especially live shopping and podcasting, and then how do I incorporate some kind of membership in this site that's going to add 3 times the value of what I'm charging to the customer, and that will really give you some longevity.
Excellent. Yeah, I like both of those. Those are high level forward thinking. So, and I agree also.
Before we get into the fire round, could you talk a little bit about the e-commerce cohort and what that is?
Sure, I'd love to. So the e-commerce cohort is a monthly membership group that we run. Going back to my what do you sell? We sell, so it's our membership, notice that word, and also it's a digital product, notice that word. And so it's just me taking my medicine. But we have a membership group, something called e-commerce cohort. It's not expensive. It's like $14-15 a month to be a member. And what we do every month is we have an expert come and deliver a workshop in a topic to do with e-commerce around those 7 areas that I mentioned earlier. And so we have that. When we do recording, you can come and join it. We live stream it into the group so you can ask guest questions and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's a fun little group, a fun little community membership group that if you're in e-commerce, you should definitely think about joining.
Awesome. Thank you.
We'll put links to those in the show notes. Matt, are you ready for the fire round?
Yeah, absolutely not. No, but let's do it anyway.
What is your favorite book?
The book that I read the most would be the Bible. So I'm going to go with that one.
Okay, awesome. What are your hobbies?
Woodwork and converting my van. I'm trying to convert a van at the moment. So yeah, they're the things that I would do.
Okay. Is that like converting it from into like a livable on the road type travel van, or?
Kind of. So it's more, I'm at a certain phase of life. I'm at a certain age, gentlemen. I'm not going to lie. And so my kids, 2 of my 3 kids have left home. They're both at university. And Zoe, my daughter, she's not far away. And so life is at a very different stage. And 2 years ago, I got rid of the sports car and I bought a van and just loved it. And what I want to do, or what I'm actually doing, is in the back of the van, I'm making like a little mobile office type thing. So I'm setting up some monitors in there so I can drive the van down to the river here in Liverpool or up to a place in the UK called the Lake District, which is just the most beautiful place on earth. And I can park the van up and I can sit and I can write and I can work and just totally enjoy it. And so there'll be a bed in there. So if I want to sleep there, I'll just go up the lakes for a few days. But it's more of an office. But I want to do it in such a way that I can still use it as a van. I still want to be able to throw an 8x4 sheet of plywood in the back and it'll be fine, So it's a multi-use vehicle. Let's just put it that way.
I like it. Yeah, that's awesome.
That'd be great when it's finished. It's just taking a long time.
It's on the project list, right?
Yeah. Which is just the thing about my van is because it's my van, it's not as important as my wife's projects that go on my list.
It's on the bottom of the list, right? All right. What is one thing that you do not miss about working for the man?
One thing that I don't miss about working for the man, being tied to somebody else's agenda. So you have to bear in mind, I've been an entrepreneur now. I've been working for myself. 22 years ago, the work's landscape looked entirely different, right? There was none of this hybrid working. There was none of this. If I'd have suggested to my boss, I want to spend 2 days a week working at home, man, that would not have gone down at all well. The fact that I don't have to go into the office 9 to 5, that I'm not tied to their agenda. They want their, don't get me wrong, my old boss is a wonderful person. I'm still very good friends with him, love the bones off him. But yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing. It's the flexibility is to make whatever decision I like, whenever I like to make it. And then I'm solely responsible for the consequences of that.
Fair enough. All right, last one. What do you think sets apart successful e-commerce entrepreneurs from those who give up, fail, or never get started?
So everybody fails, and everybody's response to failure is different. And we can term it differently. We can use words like we just need to reframe that, or, whatever the terminology is that we use. But we all screw up. We all fail. Things don't work out. And it's what we do with that I think separates those that are around for the long term. So I could tell you story after story about how we almost went bankrupt several times on our journey. Some of it was my own stupid fault. Some of it was not. Some of it I could take partial blame for. It's in those moments, I think, you can choose to grow through what you go through. You can either come out stronger, or you can just say, this is not right. This is not for me. How you deal with failure, and I'd probably go as far as to say is probably not failing quick enough. There are some times when we're working on things that we're so determined to make it work that we can't walk away. And actually, I think successful people know when to say enough's enough. And they know when to walk away. And so because they're not afraid of failure, they tend to fail quicker. Yeah, if you're going to fail quick, learn from it, move on, bounce back. Just make sure your successes far outweigh your failures, and you'll be all right.
Absolutely. Matt, if people are interested in getting in touch with you or joining the e-commerce cohort, what would be the best way?
So e-commerce cohort, we'd love to see you there. Just come over to ecommercecohort.com, ecommercecohort.com. If you want to find out more about me, just head over to Matt Edmundson.com, and I apologize ahead of time. But everything's there.
Awesome. And we'll post links to all of that in the show notes. Matt, want to thank you for being a guest on the Firing the Man podcast, and we're looking forward to staying in touch.
That's been an absolute privilege, my friend, and thoroughly enjoyed it. Great series of questions as well. Got the old brain juices going, which is saying it's nearly 9 p.m. here is a good thing, let me tell you.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Thanks for watching this video. If you got some value out of this, would you please hit the like and subscribe button? This is a free way to support the show, and it really helps us build our audience.